Welcome back. 6:42 on Daybreak, and the Buffalo History Museum is showcasing the work of an artist from Oregon, which is a homecoming of sorts. Marie Watt is also a member of the Seneca Nation.
And her exhibit is meant to shed a new light on history, as we find in this week's Unknown Story of Western New York. It tells the story of a murder case that put societal beliefs and prejudice on trial. The exhibit is called Haudenosaunee Resurgence, calling back, calling forward. A key part of the exhibit is the name Nancy Bowen.
Nancy Bowen was the co-defendant in a 1930 and 31 murder trial.
A trial that was called the scandal of the century and grabbed headlines around the world because it combined murder, adultery, witchcraft, and a clash of cultures.
It played out through the media. There were jurisdictional issues. There were conflicting belief systems that really were also the subject of the trial, in addition to Nancy Bowen and her co-defendant, Lila Jimerson.
Jimerson is believed to have convinced Bowen that a French woman named Clotilde Marchand was a witch, responsible for the death of Bowen's husband. They were apparently led to that conclusion through the use of a Ouija board, but many argued that what was behind all of it was Clotilde's husband, Henri Marchand.
He uses them and manipulates them into what's believed into killing his wife, Clotilde.
Henri was a sculptor at the Buffalo Museum of Science who visited the Seneca Nation quite often and used many Seneca women, including Jimerson, as models. He said he would have to have relations in order to make them comfortable enough to pose. But a series of letters that were discovered indicated that he had a long affair with Lila Jimerson.
You really need to look at Henri Marchand as kind of the mastermind behind this entire thing. He had a mastery of, he understood the Haudenosaunee belief system, and he really leveraged that to take advantage of these two women.
Anthony Greco is the director of exhibits at the History Museum.
Though there's a lot of questions in exactly how it played out, there were letters that were allegedly sent from a psychic or a medium based in Cleveland that were convincing Nancy Bowen to put an end to this white witch who was living in Buffalo, this French woman who had cast spells upon different indigenous people and had caused their death.
Bowen, a Seneca tribal healer, confronted Clotilde at the Marchand family home on Riley Street in Buffalo and accused her, in broken English, of being a witch. Bowen then pulled out a hammer and beat Clotilde, then finished the job by stuffing chloroform-soaked paper down her throat.
In killing Clotilde Marchand, Nancy Bowen believed that she was freeing her, basically, of evil spirits.
Witnesses reported seeing two Native women outside of the home. Within days, Bowen and Jimerson were arrested on the Cattaraugus territory. And while they were charged with the murder, the case took on a life of its own.
But really, a larger element to the trial itself was the way that kind of the belief system was put on trial.
The funny thing is, the headlines, the way they're set up, they kind of disparage and discredit the women from the onset.
The headlines dripped of racism. The case reeked of ignorance of the Seneca culture and the issues surrounding sovereignty.
Even though it's 2022, this case was in 1930, it is still relevant today.
And that's why Joe Stallman, the director of the Seneca Iroquois National Museum, was happy to serve as an advisor for the exhibit.
It's still going on today. A lot of the race issues, a lot of mistrust of the media and of government.
Things that he hopes can be resolved through communication and looking at the past through a scope of honesty. In the meantime, the name Nancy Bowen remains glowing above the portico of the History Museum and within the unknown stories of Western New York. And while Nancy Bowen may have been convicted in the media coverage, the first trial ended in a mistrial. The second trial, Jimerson was acquitted and freed. Bowen was actually released after pleading guilty to manslaughter. She was sentenced to time served because it was several years at that point.
You really know how to leave us hanging.
Weave a tapestry.
I was going to ask as soon as it came out, well, was she guilty?
Yeah, but it is a fantastic exhibit, and I encourage you, if you're a fan of history, to stop by the History Museum and take a look.
And those stories are still so relevant
oh,
today,
yeah.
90 years later.
Absolutely.